Hello, divine, beautiful souls. This is Energy Speaks podcast with your host, Catriel. We have a very special season here with the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series. And I'm bringing up different practitioners from the series, and we have our online Aquarius practitioner, Kristin Geeslin, who is the Mindful Seer. How are you doing today?
I'm excited to be with you again, Catriel. Yeah, woo!
We always go on such a grand journey together, don't we?
We certainly do.
So Aquarius. Aquarius is what we're really diving into here. And that is the center of attention for like the entire world as we're in Aquarius season. How have you been feeling thus far?
Well, as we mentioned before we started, January has felt very fast. This new Aquarian energy is moving things so quickly. And I've had both kind of an interesting and changed up, outer and an interesting and changed up inner. As I've been trying to just make sure I kind of kept my I's crossed and my T's crossed and my I's dotted. Yeah, that.
What happens if you dot a T?
It's a good question. I'm not sure what happens then, but because there is so much change is kind of what I'm saying. Because it feels like it's very quick change. Like today, I was like, I just really have to clean the office because my knowledge space in here. I'm so happy you can't see it all. Is just wildly full of all kinds of things, not in their normal place, and that's just because there's been a lot going on, and it's exciting. But also it's just sort of like, you got to really stay, in the moment, in the next moment, in the next moment.
You know, it's like I'm gonna ask like a specific kind of question, because it just kind of came up. How does you as shining through Virgo energy really connect with this Aquarian?
That's interesting. I feel like that comes more from my diffuse consciousness, psychic seer self,
Mm,
my less my Kristin self.
mm,
More the mindful seer. I feel the mindful seer extends into the Aquarian energy, which of course is more transcendental and beyond, the this time space kind of thing.
mm. So interesting this morning. I had like a very interesting morning because it just felt like everything was sped up. Everything was sped up. And I didn't know what to do. So I started talking with my mom, and I just noticed I was getting pumped. Like I was like talking so loud. I was amped up, and I said, you know what? That's a good thing. That's an awesome thing. Because like that means that there's momentum happening, that there's energy pumping. And even though I might be feeling overwhelmed or whatever that negative perceived feeling is there's energy moving, it's pumping up, and it was bringing me into a state of like Aries energy, which was super interesting. I'm like, I'm gonna take inspired action. So it's kind of funny because I feel like my Scorpio, how it's technically connecting with the uh Aquarian energy is somehow bringing out Aries for me. But with my like Sag rising, it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of fun. Let's go and do this because it's more mutable. But like Scorpio is freaking intense and it's like very fixated, which is also, like this the Aquarian energy is a fixed sign. And it's like, you know, um I don't know. Like, I would love to I feel like I do see it. I see like the energy actually moving. But if we were to capture that on like a canvas, it would look incredibly insane.
You know, it's interesting. In the last year and a half or 2 years, I have been more aware of different subtle things with energy that I wasn't aware of prior, to that time.
Yeah,
Sometimes how like certain mindsets of certain people, if I'm around them, then I'm walking out with some of that mindset energetically.
yeah,
Things like that. Just a lot more subtleties about how energy is operating have been revealed to me. It came through in the fall solstice in 2022, I think it was, about frequency overall and how important our integrity is
mm,
relative to our frequency. So, one of the things that you and I share that's not typical is that we both walk a wisdom tradition path pretty conscientiously, but
yeah,
I feel like that allows us a lot of space and freedom to expand in many different ways because we have those anchors that are kind of at all the levels of the chakra to that creates integrity for us. So
mm,
then you can kind of go with like what you're saying, you're like, oh, I'm talking to my, it's like automatically when you feel your Shakti coming, when you feel that energy rising, you're like, okay, something's about to be born, something's about to, I'm about to co-create something, or, it's emerging, and you're just kind of like, wow, I'm just going to step back for a second and roll with this and see what does emerge, because you are able to trust the process that you've cleaned your act up enough that whatever is coming out, it's going to be good. It's going to be good for you, it's going to be good for the people around you. And so I don't know, I feel a special kinship with you because of course that piece, and we have a shared mentor. So our connection is perhaps prior lifetimes relative to our having that shared mentor, etc. And who knows how many times we've sat with her in prior lifetimes.
It's so funny. I had this like when you mentioned Judith, I heard in my head, you need to put a pole mander on. And I reach out my hand and I just like literally put my hand. I was like, there's a pole mander. And this is the Emerald Heart, um, like Pomander from Orosoma. And I'm just gonna like I'm just gonna put some on right now because just to kind of honor the memories of Judith and Robert. And this is the exact Pomander we would always use to put on together,
Mm.
which is like really huge. So like they're with us. They're with us. And I know this is probably not how you probably thought, but I was wondering, in this now moment, would you be able to pick a card from um the James Wanless tarot deck? I can't remember the name of it for right now. I don't know why.
Yeah, I have all three decks here in the baking bowl. Okay, so
Okay.
I've got the Voyager Tarot, Voyager, the
Totally.
Sustain Yourself deck, which is also from James. And I received, instruction from Judith in the Voyager Tarot, certified, and then James certified me after that.
Oh, that's funny.
And then I also have in this bowl, I have the White Squirrel deck, which is, I call this the Just Do It deck, and it gives really specific information. So here it's telling me to adjust. Okay, so go with the flow, baby. If you want to see cards, we got cards. All right. So should we just check in from Judith, a message from Judith?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
All right, and I'll get a Voyager card for that. Oh, look what we get. Okay, so we get the Devil's Play card. Okay, so of course, in this transformative version of the tarot, we're up leveling all of the lower energies into a more transformative frequency. And the way the devil card is interpreted has a different take. Okay, the take on this card is sort of, you see, it's got sort of a playful energy in it. You've got divine masculine, divine feminine, or I don't even know. I think of it that way because I see it that way a lot. But actually, I think these might be two guys in here. It's hard to tell because one's kind of looks like a creature. But everyone's really having fun, all right? And you've got a lot of sort of mythopoetic indigenous energy in here as well. There's some masks and things in this card.
Mm,
So the point is, instead of, a lot of times in the old interpretation of the devil, you might think of addiction or compulsion or lower energies that are out of control. But in the way we read the Voyager, we are wanting to invite those energies into moving up the chakra system, okay, and out for transformation, instead of
interesting.
having repressed energies, instead of having denial energies about our lower instincts or desires. We're going to invite them to the party and offer them up the chakra system to express in the form of creativity and activating the heart chakra, instead of just being like, we're not going to deal with anything from the waist down. So it's a different way of handling those energies, which everybody that's a human, that has a human body, can benefit from understanding how to honor all of their the lower chakras, from the waist down, while not necessarily letting them run their lives. So we're past the point of repression and control, and that's old school. And that's part of why James created this new deck, because the old tarot was created during a time of colonialistic or top-down repression and all that. And this deck was created for the 21st century. It is the first
Mm,
deck that has melanated skin. It has, all these transformative, there's each card has 12 metaphysical symbols in it. So it's all about moving consciousness into the 21st century and out of that old dark energy from the dark ages, where ultimately the tarot started with the people, and then the authoritarian church system didn't want people to use it because it was too empowering. And so as we loop back around to the energy empowerment, okay, here that you're talking about, zodiac energy empowerment, the tarot also a symbolic system for energetic empowerment.
yes, absolutely. There's this another story in regards to the tarot, that I learned from a Jewish perspective, which was really unique, is that when we were like being taken over by the Hellenistic Greek period, um, we were not allowed to speak on the Torah. We were not allowed to have a Torah, take it out, any of that. And if we did, there would be there'd be consequences. And Torah, tarot, there's a story in there that we actually had these cards to explain the Torah, of like kind of like the fool's journey aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a way to do that, that we wouldn't die or have those consequences in a safe way. And I was like, wow, I never heard that one before, but that makes a lot of sense, you
Yeah,
know?
that's really interesting. It was like a coded system,
Yes.
right. A coded system for safety and security. So for people that don't know, Catriel is Jewish. So that's why when he says we, that's the we, because not everybody might not put that together with your name.
Thank
So
you.
well, yeah. Actually, I have the Fool Child in here someplace. The way James reinterpreted that Fool card was the Fool Child, because he took out the royalty. There's no kings or queens or any of that business in this deck. It's man, woman, and child. So the
Yeah.
Fool card is the Fool Child. And it has images of like those doll, like a doll with really big eyes, like, oh, what's going on? Let me check the world out. And it also has a little embryo in there, a picture of a fetus. So sometimes when we don't know exactly what's on the horizon, when we can't really see clearly, we're standing on the edge of the cliff, like in the rider Waite deck. There is something already starting to create itself, but we can't necessarily see it yet. So I try to keep that in mind energetically when, back to what you're saying is, you could feel all this energy rising this morning as you were talking with your mom. Sometimes we're in the opposite spot. We're in the place of, meh, we're not having energy, and like for people like you and me, that's like terrifying. At least it is for me. I don't like that place. It's unnerving because I'm used to being in a place where I can feel flow. So then when things are just kind of dormant, but what I've learned is when that dormancy occurs, it's because there's something percolating. There is something coming. There's something trying to form itself. And there has to be a period of quietness and gestation in order for that new thing to come into being. And then, it needs quiet time sometimes before it emerges, whether that's an insight into myself or a project or an idea, or having the energy to do something that I've wanted to do that I didn't quite have the mojo for. So I'm more respectful now at this point in my life at 60 of when my energy is lower. I try not to push the river. I try to just say, okay, let's just hang out and do the basics until inspired action, returns, yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Wow. You know, so for our viewers and listeners, I would love to hear more on like how you even got into the tarot, um, connected with Judith, and um, how did this all come out of the woodwork for you?
Well, I always had some intuitive abilities going way back to my teen years was the first time I really noticed something. I was actually saved when I was 15 from being raped by a dream. I had a dream showing me this terrifying sequence,
Huh.
and a few weeks later, I was sitting at a bus stop waiting for a ride from the public transportation from the bus. And I was wearing this suede jacket that belonged to my friend. And I was going to get the bus to go to Clearwater Mall. And someone offered me a ride. Well, okay, I was naive. I got in this car with someone I didn't know. Very terrible judgment looking back. But going down US 19 from Crystal Beach toward Country or Clearwater Mall, something the person I was in the car with, this man said, "Would you like to go out to the beach?" And what he meant was the causeway. And in my dream, that's where I had been attacked. So I started thinking quick on my feet. I said, "Oh my gosh, I've got to get out of this car some kind of way." And I said, "Oh, well, I have to meet my friend at the mall at 12 o'clock. I'm returning this jacket to her," which was true, only I don't know if we even had a time, but I made it seem very urgent and that I would be expected. And thank goodness I was able to get out of that car. So
Wow.
early on, yep, safely. So early on, I knew that intuition was a something that was important. It wasn't like, a parlor game or whatever. I had been saved from what would have been a terrible experience by that precognitive dream. And I've had other dreams at different times in my life that were informative or helpful in that way. It's often comes to me as like a protection from danger or potential danger, even if it's not danger, even potential danger. Sometimes I'll have a dream about something in advance. And so I was interested in metaphysics starting early. My mom took me to learn yoga and meditation, blah, blah. But my dad told me I had to go to college, was demanded of me. And so I went to college. I had a regular career in human services, education, nonprofit environments, workforce development. I started as like a counselor and worked my way up to director level in the continuing ed department of a community college. But the whole way through, I was always doing my meditation. I started doing the Vajrayana meditation practices in my 20s. and just always interested in all the different various metaphysics. And then in like 09, 010, Dark Night of the Soul happened. 18 months of nothing but tower moments, one tower after the next after the next. For those of you that are not tarotists, the tower is when things do not work out, when something you're counting on ends. And I had a house fire. I was illegally fired from a job. I moved to another state. That job I was laid off from. My teen child dropped out of high school and then dropped out of college. I mean, my dad died and my grandmother died all within, and there were more little things, it was a lot. Oh yeah, my house burned. I mean, it was a lot of things happened in that short amount of time. It was almost as if the universe was asking or inviting me to stop trying to do things in a left brain way. And as I was coming through those experiences, I went into this place for a while where I had to go to the realm of I don't know. And because I was smart, I do have some smarts, and I'd had education, and I happened to be claircognizant. I was all into personally ego, knowing things. And so in order for me to do the work that I do now, where I sense in and perceive into the matrix, I had to learn how to be a really good I don't know person. So for about 4 years after that stream of stuff happened, I worked at Nielsen TV ratings, and I was just kind of building these skill sets. And I didn't want to lose my counseling. Oh, and I made a contract. I made a contract with the universe, because I was picking up a lot of toxic energy in the space where I was working at this college. And I thought to myself, I am going to get ill. Like I could feel fibromyalgia starting in my body. And I said, okay, universe, I can either work for organizations from the outside, like training, team building, consulting, or I can work with people one-on-one, but I cannot live in toxic soup anymore because I was opening up and I was too sensitive to the negative energies in an environment. So then I wanted to go back to that kind of work because it paid well. And the universe just continued to say, no, you're never coming back here. And it was only really a few weeks ago that I realized if I had gotten another one of those big responsible jobs, I would have overworked, and I probably would have ended up ill because I'm a 9, I'm a humanitarian, and I would have used all of the power at my disposal and at administrative level to help individuals, and I would have overdone it. I absolutely know for sure. Couldn't say no to somebody standing in front of my desk who had a need, and I would find some way to help them, even if I had to turn myself 10 ways from Sunday. So now I was like, oh, thanks, universe, for keeping me out of that, because I had no sense of how to say no, and preserve my energy back then. So long story short, I ended up meeting Judith. Okay. At some point, I think 2016, I met Judith Hitchman at the Intuitive Store in Dunedin. And I had been trying out to get hired there to do readings because I thought I don't want to lose my counseling skills. And by now my intuitive stuff was just bopping and hopping. And they said, oh, well, we don't have any openings now because Judith Hitchman is here and she's teaching Intro to Voyager Tarot. And I thought, I had slaved through a master's degree, working 54 hours a week as a nanny and going to school full time. I thought I couldn't get my debit card out of my wallet fast enough to say, sign me up for that Voyager Tarot. It was $45 and 3 sessions. I'm like, if that certificate opens doors for me, I need it fast. And there were only 3 people who took that course at that store. And I was the only one that really resonated with the deck. It was like a yoga workout. The Voyager was a yoga workout for my intuitive abilities. And pretty soon, all my clairs were opening up. As soon as I started using that deck, and soon I was doing the Voyager sort of opened the door to professional opportunities. And the next thing I knew, I was doing readings. So everything changed. And then at the same time, I was studying theta healing. So between, I had that little Nielsen TV ratings job until 2018. And then from 2018 till now, it's been readings, mindfulness coaching and intuitive development, intuitive mentoring with people. So it just, it was not a pretty experience. And the stress level is not, I almost equate all of those changes I went through to like a near death experience where my ego was just really taken apart. And, it's taken a long time for me to integrate everything that happened. And I've also over time realized it's okay for me to be both science and spirituality. When I first started putting myself out as a professional psychic, I didn't know what to write on LinkedIn because we didn't have Deepak, all of the people ahead of me that are doing science and spirituality are guys. Deepak, Joe Dispenza, Matt Kahn, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden. And so I'm kind of out there on the edge for a woman my age to have been trained in scientific methodology and yet also be in the woo. And so I'm just now kind of feeling comfortable about that and owning that. Like, yes, I can think in a methodical scientific method manner, research focused, and I can also sense into the matrix. So it goes.
It's so interesting as we're heading into this age of Aquarius. Science is a huge piece of that. But I feel like, I just watched a YouTube video. It's like 2 hours long. I wish I knew names better, but uh, even the word science doesn't even feel like you know, what exactly we're opening up. It's alchemy, you know?
Right.
And so because if we go back for like we have this, science um mentality, like what you just said, in the science communities and things like that. But what was really happening before that was how do we put things together and like transform ourselves? That's alchemy. And so I feel like your this is what's coming through is your soul has already been to those spaces and places, um, in a past life, future life, whatever, and is very skilled. So, but it's all also, in this lifetime, really connected with what is science today. And you're able to integrate the two, which is very awesome. And that's what we need more of is that the science is always going to is only going to take us so far. But
Mhm.
when we start to really, you know, understand what alchemy is, because it is an understanding, that's going to shift the name of the game for every single person on this planet. Excuse me.
Right.
Apparently.
The word that comes to me is transformation. That,
Yep.
alchemy is a methodology for transformation. And when I was trying to look at the through lines with you and some of the others in our circles, the word transformation really came through. And I didn't even know this until I was watching some videos about Vajrayana Buddhism. But that's one of the key elements of Vajrayana is transformation. And I was like, oh, this is making so much sense now, why I was drawn to it, why it's captured me, why I'm still here after 30 years. I'm like, okay, I get it now. And yes, and okay, so this ties into what we were talking about this morning in terms of the potentially I might be on the spectrum conversation.
Hmm.
We tend to be, neurodivergent thinkers tend to be able to pull from different places to put something new together or are more able to notice the interconnectedness of things. And that's really what has affected my view, my mindfulness view throughout my entire career. So I was building and accumulating a knowledge base in all these different human service education nonprofit settings I was in because I was seeing things from a viewpoint that was integrative or systems oriented or synergistic, okay, rather than siloed or compartmentalized or boxed in. And
Mm,
what that has allowed me to do is to create bridges where there weren't bridges, or provide something that wasn't there. Okay, to be able to take ABC, resources and turn it into XYZ result,
mm,
where other people were not necessarily noticing that there was a gap, or noticing that there were some resources that if you just spun them around a little different, you could make something more effective.
yeah.
And, when I was young, I grew up my personal life in a family that was very into working hard, creative, charming, charismatic, but also a lot of drinking and dysfunction that went with that. And so early on, I was like, that is really crazy. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. But my goal, based on the little pathway that seems sane, was let me do body, mind, spirit balance.
Mm,
Let's balance those things. And so that was my aspiration, starting very young. And I was started doing a formal meditation practice in college. So a lot of people who are kind of on the bus now have been here for 10 years or 20 years, but this kind of thinking and mindset and approach, this more alchemical, conscious, creating the future of a world that works for all, has been the through line, my entire life. So I'm 60 now, and I started with this 20 years ago. And so every aspect of my life has been permeated in some way with the idea of transformation, alchemization, bringing things to a higher level of functionality, frequency, if you will. And so that's where my little system has birthed itself.
I'm excited to really delve deep into the BISM. I was fortunate and blessed to have a BISM session with Kristin. And um it, I was like, this is really cool. I really, really like it. And what here's the thing is like, in order to really connect with it, you really need to have time for yourself. Because, like you said, from like a scientific perspective, you have to analyze the data. You have to sit. So let's take that from, we have that science perspective. Let's take it from a more alchemical. It's bringing it back to the self, right? This whole process of B.I.S.M is connected to the self. So we actually have to take the time to feel through every aspect of that. And so I'm very excited for what we're going to be doing in this Aquarius online class, because we are like, how many people out here that are watching this or listening to this say, I don't have enough time for myself? Okay. So I am one of them. I mean, our conversation last week was like, I just got a moment for myself, and then it stopped. This is a class that you will be able to say, I am sectioning off time to actually feel into myself and what I need to thrive. And I can say that wholeheartedly because I've had a session with Kristin, the Mindful Seer. So, can you take us a little bit deeper into what we'll be doing in that class?
Yes, I'm going to first show you my little visual aid so you can see the little sections of what we get into. So we're checking out what's going on at the physical level with the body, where you live, how your money flows. The emotional level, the intellectual life, your spirit soul journey, and your relationship with your higher power. And so I've been playing around with different methodologies for sort of self-assessment, self-reflection. And there's a couple different ways a person can go to kind of get a handle on how things are going. Now, this is not like you do this one time and you're finished. This is a system that you can use again and again at your discretion when you have a moment. You don't have to do every section every time. It's a way to just have a few more levels of frequency in that body, mind, spirit wheel. So I'm adding, instead of spirit being one spot, I'm giving spirit, soul, and mastermind. Okay, a little more bandwidth there. And then we don't always think about our intellectual life, okay? Because what is mind? In Buddhism, our teacher would say, "Show me your mind. Where's your mind? Where is it located?" That's a tricky one. So in the class, we're going to do a little practice, which many of you may be familiar with, or you may not be, but we're going to learn to use our bodies as a pendulum for a yes/no accuracy answer, an intuitive answer. Now, because your heart area has the highest level of magnetism of any place in your body electromagnetically, when you face due north, like due north on a compass, and you ask yourself a question, if the answer is true, your body will naturally move forward toward the magnetic pole of yes. If the answer is no, your body automatically goes back. So we're going to check and see how we're doing. We're going to ask a question, something like, my beliefs, we're going to check our beliefs. My beliefs are aligned at 50% or higher relative to everything associated with the body. And then spirit already knows what my format is. We don't have to explain those details because we've created a container. We put that out just like when we do cards. And then the person's going to get a read. Yes, okay, I'm in pretty good shape there. And they may get 3 or 4 of the areas are coming out pretty good. Yep, pretty aligned. But then, there might be one area or two where, there could be some work on the beliefs. Okay, so why are the beliefs important? Because basically everything that we create comes out of a belief system, and the universe is reflecting back to us what's going on. To some extent, there's sort of collective consciousness cycles of beliefs too, but where we have leverage over how we create our life to a large extent is in the realm of beliefs. So we want to stay on top of that realm, because that opens, the more our beliefs are aligned for our highest good, the more opportunities we have to serve ourselves, well, and to serve others well. So then once we have that little part done, we'll do that as a group. Then I'm going to divide people in the Zoom into smaller groups. And then we're going to go a little deeper with using some cards. If you have any deck that you want to use, you can use angel cards, oracle cards, if you're a tarotist. And we're going to do some small group work to see a little more gradient, to see if maybe we can double check what we got from the pendulum thing, yes or no, or we can go a little closer, in a smaller view of exactly what's going on in that area. So we'll do that in 2 different sessions. I'll have, like, you'll be with one group of people once, or one partner once, and then I'll spin the Zoom thing. And so you'll get to meet some different people in the class. And then hopefully at the end, there'll be one area that you'd like to focus on empowering yourself in, using the Aquarian energy to transform whatever that area might be where you want to increase your strengths. Ultimately, when you can self-regulate in these areas, it increases your ability to belong, okay, and to be active in the universe in a constructive way. So that's where we link back into the Aquarian thing, okay, your belongingness, your life purpose. All right. So when we can regulate ourselves and we kind of have our energy focused on the things we can influence, it totally takes us to a new level in terms of being able to choose the things in the universe that we want to affect, in a positive way, in our small communities, in our families, in our communities, in our state, in our nation, in the globe, in the stratosphere of the frequencies that we're all sharing, that all life forms are sharing. So that's kind of how, this, like that little phrase, let it begin with me. That song, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be awareness on earth and let it begin with me.
I love it. I'm very excited for this class. I feel like it's going to illuminate a lot for us all. and be able to get into a practice of checking in, because that's all what it's about. It's really checking in. This moment had an outburst, checked in with myself and said, "Why are you having this outburst?" Because your your system is feeling so much energy. And I was like, okay, feel it to its fullest, you know? And so it's like when we have, yeah, that's the other thing is that I wanted to touch base on here is like many of us are empaths. We really perceive the energies of the world differently than most. And we're sensitives, and that's okay. We can use it um to our potential rather than our detriment. And how I'm going to ask you a question in regards to being an empath. How have you seen from when you began your empathic journey? I mean, really coming into the world and not knowing how to manage boundaries and all these different things that come along with being an empath, right? And how has that evolved?
Well, I do believe there's sort of a membrane, if you will, between psychological boundaries and energetic boundaries.
Okay.
So if you know for sure, for certain, there are people or situations or circumstances that you know you need to say no to, that you are sure are not for you, get those done first. Those are the big ones, get
Yep.
because those are surely affecting you energetically. Okay, so that's like the first pass is,
Mm,
make the shifts and changes. Like I had to choose to not work in an environment like, I was offered another job in that same environment. I was laid off from the director of continuing ed job, and I was offered another job there at that place. And when I thought about like the energy in that space, and I thought, oh, it's going to take about 5 years of conscientious work to shift that vibe in that place. I thought, no, I would prefer not to be, even if they were working conscientiously toward improving it, which I think they were. I thought I'm going to have to be in this kind of negative, lower vibration for quite a while. And I just thought, oh no, my body can't handle that. So it was partly a psychological boundary because, of the way things went down, but partly in the end, it was, do I want to be in that energy? And
mm,
the answer came back no. So that was very clear for me, that could not be a place for me to be, on an ongoing basis. Now, some of the things with the energy awareness are more subtle. And I think the more you tune into what your own needs are, which was also like a new idea, like if I go back even further, when I was working in human services, as a nine, okay, I have two nines, so I'm an over the top humanitarian. I would have just given and given until I was burned to a crisp. And I started to realize that there would be there's an unlimited amount of need in the world. Okay. So I can't base what I do or don't do on the outside. I have to base what I do or don't do on my resources. So what is it that's non-negotiable for me? What does that mean? Is that I need, meditation, exercise, what is it on my side of the energy preservation that I have to be sure to look after? I did not figure this out. I didn't even start thinking like that until like the early mid 2000s is when
mm.
boundaries started to be better. I started to be clearer about boundaries. Okay, so now I'm 20 years out from there. Um, yeah, it's better. It's not perfect. Okay. I did something the other day that I jumped right into and I realized, why did I sign up for that? Okay. So I still do it, at times. Now, in terms of one of the things that happens with a lot of empaths is they'll find themselves feeling not their best and they're not sure why. Like, is there an objective reason why I should not feel good? No. Okay. 9 times out of 10, that person's been thinking about something in the collective or a person, or they've been around a certain type of person or certain environment, and they have picked up some emotional content from that environment that is not even their responsibility. Um, and we learn, most of us who are empaths learn in our early lives, while negotiating, tricky situations, to be really tuned into what's going on with everybody else, which can be turned into a helper skill, but can also be a downside if you don't know how to tune in to what you need. So when I work with empaths, I tell them, please be aware of how you normally feel in certain situations, which they might have to learn that. They might not even know. But if you start feeling some kind of weird way that's really not normal for you at all, then chances are it's not even your thing. You've picked something up from someplace you've been, or from someplace in the collective it's not even yours. And it's not your responsibility at all. You've just been sensing into it, and now you've got it. So I actually heard a really good reel by someone recently who said, let's learn to observe rather than absorb.
Oof.
As input, observe rather than absorb. And that is totally, the idea of holding sacred space for others. When I do theta healing, it's watching. I'm watching the higher energies come and do the work. I'm not in there at all. So
Yeah,
it's really, that observing instead of absorbing mode. And that's the priestess, that's the guardian. These are energy types, mythopoetic types that we have to cultivate. And as we do more sitting practice, or as we do whatever it is we do that helps us center, we cultivate more of that presence. And the more of that presence that we have, then things are going to more bounce off of us. We're not going to just be super absorbing all kinds of other energies that are not really our own energy.
agreed. And if you think about it from that way, many of us are like, well, I'm the transformer. I'm around people and I transform things. Well, you're not necessarily the transformer. You are the vessel that is representing, this transformation energy, that spirit, source, Hashem, God, whatever name you call, um, is doing the work. And you you get to help.
Right.
You know?
I lately I've been thinking of my role, especially like when I do theta healing. I'm helping people just be a little bit more conscious of what's going on, a
Yes.
little bit more aware. That's it. And
That's
it's
it.
it's as if the motion of the healing or the shift is already in flow from the divine. And then I'm just there to say, hey, look over here, or did you notice that over there? And in fact, it's gone as far as recently. I was doing theta healing at an event last week, and a woman had been invited into, she was taking training as a Peruvian shaman. So she was working with some elders and an energy system and ancient ones and protective energies. And as I was working with her, at some point they said, we've got her. We've got her. Like, don't work too hard. We don't try to do too much here. We've got her handled. And yet she was coming to me, so she wasn't feeling handled. So she needed the message that her issues are being handled. And so that was really, my role in that moment. I got this twice recently, where these higher level energies are like, hey, chill, because we've got this.
It's great.
Yeah, and I guess because they were very distinct. One was the Peruvian woman, and then I work with this other lady who has a big Catholic background, and she let me do, we were doing some work together, and then the angels just came in around her, like this, and encased her, like, okay, we've got her. And I'm like, okay, great, it's all done. I have nothing else to say or do right now. That's complete. Thank you. Thanks. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So, as we're standing in our extant traditions, you and I, and also playing this crazy mystic role, we are really turning over our energy grid to ancient patterns that are established and are not our personal time space being. It doesn't have anything to do with Catriel or Kristin or the Mindful Seer. These are, energy frequencies that have been here long before we showed up. And we just happen to be able to, through the practices and attentive focus, tune into those frequencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it. On that note, I would love to just pick another card because we started off, well, it was funny. The first card that you pulled out was actually a just. And then that devil card came through. I'm kind of curious to see where we're at on, right now. Like I'm just observing all the energy shifts and
Moving
changes.
around. Yeah. Okay. So let's just say, let's invite. Okay. So
Mhm.
anything that we get out of cards is only as good as the questions that we're asking. Okay. As everyone knows, it's all about the question. So we're sort of, I feel maybe that your question is just sort of inviting the divine to chime in with anything else that we might not have thought about or occurred to us, or check in on what the frequency is right now.
I like that. Yes.
Is that where you want to go? Oh, of course, baby. So what do we get? But the universe card. Okay. So in fact, this little symbol right here is the same that's on the back of this card, on the back of the
Oh,
Voyager. All right, so
wow.
this, the universe is, we're talking about universal energies here. We're talking about the creative powers in terms of universal law, metaphysics, that sort of, realm. So of course we're getting the universe card. And so we're playing there in that field. It's interesting to me that James chose this particular symbol because this is actually this is what the DNA looks like for all life forms at the naked eye level. Okay, so a plant, an animal, a human, we all share this.
Wow.
And this, in terms of the larger mission of the light workers right now, like Lee Harris is, talking about all of us light workers, I feel our united mission is to help re-establish harmony with all life forms. And so that we can sustain the planet, and that all of the life forms here, all of the humans and the animals and the sea creatures and the avian, friends, everyone can continue to enjoy a quality of life, here in this particular uh whatever planet home, our mother earth. And that's, as you know, my aspiration for the B.E.I.S.M is to encourage more people to really realize their potential as spiritual beings living a human life, and to take on their divinity as their more primary identity. Because as we do that, it's going to be easier for us to work as a collective towards solutions that really can move toward building a world that works for all, and to move away from the old colonialist lack of resource sharing, control, crazy paradigm that seems to be, it's definitely over because we just can't sustain that on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things are coming through. This past weekend, um, I was able to attend the Tony Robbins event.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, it was online. It was free to everyone. Um, I decided to do the VIP thing, which was like $47 and it feeds America. Uh, and I get to replay, things, and I'm gonna be replaying that for a long
Right,
time, I feel.
right.
But reason I bring that up is I remember Tony talking about like, having a practice and what do we want in that practice and how can we go outside ourselves? Like, how can we be a vessel that is of service, but service for all, and that's including thyself. And there was a couple things that came through. He was like, every single day I wake up and I reach out to someone and I give them a compliment. And those are the little tiny things in life that is going to make someone's day, you know? And so like getting into a space of like gratitude and planting those little seeds for other beings. Because when we can compliment someone else, we also can feel that same heart because essentially we're all part of one unit. And so I encourage, you know, everyone here to find something that you connect with that can connect you to another and spread that energy. That's that's the thing I want to be contagious in this world. Like, is that
Right.
we love each other so much that we share that.
Your expression that you do when something touches you that's sweet and kind and loving like that, the myrrh, isn't that what you say?
Yeah.
Myrrh, myrrh,
Mer.
myrrh. Yeah. Spread that myrrh. Yeah, spread that.
I love that. And I also want to talk about a little bit about the Zodiac Energy Empowerment series to just kind of bring it back in for a moment. So we have, uh, I'll have to take it off for a second. Give me 2 seconds. I learned how to do this. Perfect. So Zodiac Energy Empowerment series, why we're here for this particular podcast. Um, you know, I've created something. I can't even say I necessarily created it, but I am the vessel that's putting it all together to help us, you know, have fun and connect with these different zodiac energies in a way that's playful, in a way that's deep, in a way that can take us further on our journey and with fun. And so I created a website um, to be the pinnacle point of where we can find out all of our information. It's energyspeaksbycatriel.com. Um, when you go to classes, you can you can choose the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series, and there's two paths. Um, that first path is the in-person, and the second path is the online, where we'll find Kristin. Um, you'll have practitioners and then the description of the classes and how you can actually click on to be, part of the class. And what's really unique about the online is you'll be able to have you let that particular video because it'll be recorded forever and replay it and see how far you've come through the tool of B.E.I.S.M. Um, and be able to test out because oftentimes we don't remember everything we've done in person. We can track it. And another tool I've created for this series is the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series Journal for 2024. This gives us the physical copy of like what everything is, um, like what the series about, the schedule. There's a few things on in the physical copy that are not adjusted yet because I didn't have all the information when I created it, but I will be doing updates. Um, and then it has your first goal setting. It's going to take you where you can look back throughout the entire series and see what your intentions were. And then you can go to every single class and there's 7 questions that are standing for every single class. But then we have more questions specifically catered towards your class that you took. Um, and I have that both classes of the online and the in-person in this journal. And I will tell you, I was able, like, there's certain classes you'll be able to have and take notes on, during that class. This is, I would say, one of them. When I did the Scorpio class, I was able to take really good notes, and because she used the chakra system, which is the seven standing questions of how we connect to whatever we're focusing on in that class, it was really beneficial for me to be able to track those down because I know later on I would lose the piece of paper or I wouldn't have written anything down. And it's a nice way to kind of cement it in that muscle memory of grounding something in. And then but then there's classes like yesterday where we got to create a piece of art with this is what I created in the Leo class. And I'm so excited. But what's funny is because we use color, I can go back to those questions and kind of answer my own questions based off of this physical piece that I did. And so, like, I really wanted to set everybody up for success here, that you have the tools you need, going through. And there's also the important piece of integration. If you're in an in-person class, most likely you will not be able to use this in the class because we're going to be doing active things. Online, sometimes we get to, sometimes we don't. But that integration period for us to sit down, carve out even 5 minutes for ourselves every single day to reflect on what we've been through, what we did for the class, outside the class, what's connecting to those, things that we put down on paper before or things we experienced. That physical journal is what allows us to go further, I feel. And I noticed this when I was going through soul school. I have been picking up my journals and noticing what I put down and how much stuff I've accomplished, or I get an inspired idea because I look back at the journal and I'm like, oh, I really want to do that still. Or that's an incredible insight. I want to bring that in here. I want to focus on that today. And it's a way to really I feel it freeing, free myself a little bit and see the eternal soul that is experiencing things all the time and reflecting on that journey. So there's a lot going on. I realize that in regards to the series. But what you put in, you get out, essentially. And I'm just very grateful for the practitioners that have been standing in my life and friends. Those practitioners are friends and how much wisdom they have and how we really need to share our wisdom with each other right now, whether a part of this series or not, to connect with your teachers, connect with your friends who really teach you on the daily, connect with them and do things in this world, collaborate. It's so important. We need each other during this time to rebirth. And so let me just for one moment, I'll let you know when the class is because I forgot to say that. And thank God I have something to reference. It is Thursday, February 22nd from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're somewhere in the world, if you go to that events page on my website, energyspeaksbycatriel.com, you can actually purchase your ticket and you will get a Zoom link. And it will also tell you, if you're in another part in the world, all the different types of time zones. So you don't have to do the math, hopefully. And so, um, did I miss anything?
I think you covered everything.
Oh, how much?
I just want to say you've done an amazing job pulling this together, Catriel.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I've never seen anything quite like this. That is an event that is both in the real world and online. It has so much dimensionality to it. And I really think that if, the idea of the way you're presenting it, the zodiac empowerment energy is it's different. And if people can maybe just say a bit about that, about where
Yep.
this one starts and where it ends, and how that's different about the way it's being presented, the zodiac, all the signs.
Thank you. This is why we need our friends. So I chose to use a model that I learned through Chris Witecki. It's connected to our numerology system, but it's also connected to birth. It's setting that sacred space with Scorpio, um, which is what we started with. Imagine this circle, and you have this energy that's primordial. We can often call it chaos energy, right? And then we have this boundary, which is where inside is the sacred space. And we're cultivating that within ourselves. And we're putting these different ingredients in. And so where have we been thus far? Is yes, setting that sacred space, putting in the seed of love from Leo, leading with our heart. When we start any process off with the heart, it it's naturally going to thrive because it's something that the heart is the bridge between our world and the spiritual world. And so we're really getting into that space. And naturally, Leo is connected to the sun. It is going to bring up some darkness because we're in a duality, you know? We have to see, we have to like essentially connect with that darkness, see what's there, and bring light to it. And so then we move through putting in a second um energy into this sacred space, which is Cancer energy. And that is connecting with feeling, that empathic soul, right? And that's it. The empathic soul. It is connecting our heart, then our soul to this process. And the moon is connected with Cancer energy. It is um it's it's our divine feminine energy in ways, and it's also the waves of life. So all of this is coming together and being formed into a vibration. Now, when we're wanting to manifest something, we're leading with our heart and essentially creating this vibration. We're sending it out to the universe. And then we connect with Sagittarius, that third ingredient, which is our belief system, and setting ourselves up for success because we tell stories all the time that defeat us immediately. And so we have to learn to rewrite those stories so we can expand, which is Sagittarius. Sagittarius takes back that arrow and then it releases. It has to have a target. We're finding that target. And then we let go and we come into Aquarius. Aquarius is like, we're all one heart. We are all one heart. And so we are now creating a frequency. And that means with the Aquarian energy, the shaking shift up. We have to we have to essentially figure out where we don't belong most of the time first before we find out where we do belong. That experiential, you know, and when we can detach and observe, like we've learned in this particular podcast, um, then we can start aligning all those energies that were inside and it'll start forming that arrow towards the target. We're not even there, and we're not even like all the way there yet, you know? But this process is to be able to set ourselves up for success to live to our fullest potential. And this is a model that we see in our creation story. Um, like I come from the Jewish perspective, I know what that is, but we all, from all belief systems, have a creation story. I guarantee you look back, and that is the process of birthing. And so we're really connecting to our divine source in that birthing energy and how we were made in the image of our divine creator. And we have that divinity within us, and we need to bring that out more, like Kristen said earlier. Does that help?
Yes, just that cycle, I was really impressed with how that works. Okay, that what like okay, what's in it for me? Okay, if people can catch any pieces of this either online or in the real world, their manifesting mojo will be increased because they're gonna have a more tacit understanding of those steps in the creation cycle. And we all kind of have, I think, those of us that are on purpose creators, we kind of like our go-to ways of doing things. And it's good to shake that up. It's good to look at it from a different perspective. It's good to try something new, because we want to keep the energy fresh. And so this, by participating, there are many opportunities for people to freshen up their creating mojo, to freshen up that energy.
Amen. We're here to do this thing together and build each other up and thrive. That's how I look at it. And why not do some really cool stuff in the process? Like, I mean, I'll just touch on a few things so that people know what's going on. But we have for our in-person Aquarius class, laughter yoga. We have goat yoga for Capricorn in person. Online, we have kind of like become step into our own CEO of our life. So we're gonna get some business coaching and how to set yourself up for success every single day. That's just a few, and again, all of the online, if you miss something, you'll be able to get that recording, um and get that. I'll have that set up soon, but still working out all the pieces for the website. We've only been through 2, thank goodness. So I'll get that up shortly, but I just want to say it looks like these things failed. It's okay. I just want to say thank you so much for um, being here today, being present always, and being my friend and a pillar in my life. And Judith, I feel, would be very proud of both of us right now.
Oh, thank you, Catriel. That means so much to me. I treasure our connection. The work we've done together has been so fun, and I know it's impacted people's lives in a good way. And I just feel like, you're such a bright light, and everyone that knows you feels that way about you. And I know that this project is just the beginning of the Zodiac Empowerment, experience for you and for people. And just showing what can be done. You're making it's like when you throw a pebble, into the pond. You've thrown the pebble in, and now the ring, the reverberations will continue to go out. Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate being included. Thank you for inviting me.
With honor, with honor. And I want to say thank you all, divine, beautiful souls, for listening here today. I hope you got out a lot of this beautiful energy and can step in it and bathe in it and like robe yourself into this divine wisdom. And I will see you on the next Energy Speaks podcast episode. Thank you all, divine, beautiful souls.